My name is Brigid Connors, and I'm a member of the travelling community and also a recovering heroin addict. I'm coming here today to share my experience of coming from addiction in the travelling community to going through prison a number of times and eventually getting to Ashley House, Kilmine Women's Residential Treatment. Well, I'll start off about how my addiction started, and it was prescribed medication for minor depression. And as things escalated and got worse, and I started having more children, the pressure became real, and that I started moving on to the heavier drugs. In 2014, I'd lost my father to a quick battle to cancer, and I couldn't cope with the stresses. Within 5 weeks, he was gone. I quickly moved on to crack cocaine and heroin after that. I didn't see that there was any hope for me. And my children went to the care of my mother. My partner went to prison for an incident in 2015, whereas I gave up living at that stage. I went to prison. My first time in prison, I thought it was brilliant. I said, this is a walk in the park. But I still hadn't admitted to myself at that time that I was an addict and that it was a hopeless case of an addict, that it was just an endless circle of addiction, which meant prisons, institutions and death, eventually for me. I was in prison. I went through pre-entries first of all, when I admitted that I had problems seeking counselling. And I sought counselling in the Dulcas Centre, which I had an hour session every 2 weeks. I was talking to the counsellors from Exchange House. I was seeing them for a few minutes every Friday because they had so many clients. Eventually, I gave up because the waiting list and I was getting no information about it. I gave up. I was released from the Dulcas Centre in April 2016, which resulted in me massively relapsing. I was dead. I woke up in an intensive care unit. I went back out on the rip for 6 weeks after that, and I eventually got back to the Dulcas Centre. Very happy to get back to the Dulcas Centre because it was a safe place. I was safe there. I started pre-entries there again. To be honest, with little or no support or no information about the only residential treatment centre for mothers and children in Ireland, and that was Ashley House. I had to go to a number of people in the prison and ask them could they print me out information to let me know what this programme was about. I fought every day from the day that I came down out of that healthcare unit, and I promised myself at that time that this was it for me, that I was going to make a life for myself. I did my counselling in the prison. I was seeing addiction counsellor from Exchange House every Friday for 10 or 15 minutes because the amount of clients that they had at the time, time was limited. And then it was seeing Nasa from Merchants Quay, addiction counsellor. And again, she had a number of clients. There's only 2 addiction counsellors in the Dulcas Centre to deal with over 120, 130 women. I jumped through leaps and bounds to get to where I am today. I was passed for temporary release, on which I'm very, very grateful to the Irish Prison Service for actually seeing and believing in me that I could change, and for actually giving me the chance to get to residential treatment, and just hoping that my story here today gives other women the chance that I got. I went to Ashley House on the 11th of November 2016. And to be honest with you, prison is easier than residential treatment, and it needs to be known. Women need to know that. There needs to be more information, like pre-entry groups in the jail where maybe a graduate of one of the programmes. I can only talk for Ashley House because that was my experience. Maybe a graduate could go in and speak to them about their experience, and if it's a case that they're still in it at the end of it, well be it, they can go to treatment. But it's very hard. It's very hard being in residential treatment because you actually have to look at the person that you were and try to you have to make a new life around everything. Where I am today in me recovery is that I'm happy. I live a simple life. I go to my meetings. I see my family on a day-to-day basis. I'm able to see my children now. because I lost them. I lost everything in addiction. I was left with nothing. I was left sitting in a prison cell crying on my hands and knees. Going to Ashley Houses gave me the experiences that knowing that as bad as life gets, you never give up. And being a member of the travelling community, I am proud to stand here today and say that I am in recovery. I've never worked a day in my life, and I'm starting a CE scheme with Exchange Houses, a social care, looking to go to college as a mature student. Last year, I was on a methadone detox at this time in Mount Chai. There's a few things I'd like to ask today, knowing that a few of the leaders from the IPS is here, and just hope that maybe there'd be less amount of travelling women in the Irish prisons if there was a few things that was changed and if there was more supports open to them. Because you have to be very strong in the beginning to admit to somebody that's not from your culture or your background that you're actually addicted to a substance. I think when people look at the travelling women in the Doka Centre, they think, oh, well, she's strong, but we're not actually strong. We're broken inside and just don't want to drop our image to let people know that we're vulnerable. So I think that it's well needed in the Doka Centre is that somebody could go in and it's just assigned to the travelling community. There's a few things I have wrote out here, and it's just points that I want to put across. Is one that when I was seeking treatment in the Doka Centre, there was little or no information about residential treatment programmes. And the only information I was getting is that from Peter Moylan, pre-entries in Kilmine. I really think that there should be a pre-entry group within the prison service, a graduate group, maybe once or twice a week. Another issue is women are being released on a Friday to go home to the likes of Galway, Mayo, Kerry, miles down the country. Their tolerance are on the floor. If they have went in an addict and done what I did, they're going through, they're very vulnerable leaving the prison. And that's a high risk of overdose or even death if they pick up the wrong amount. Women need somebody that you can trust to speak to about the lack of education within the prison service. Me personally, I was lucky enough because I went to school till I was 15, so I could read and write. But I've had older members of the travelling community coming to me saying how ashamed they feel that they can't read or write. And our English teacher in the Doka Centre, she's here actually here today. Big thanks to her. The work that she does with the women in the Doka Centre is unbelievable, and the passion she has for the travelling community. If women could be assigned a support worker upon release from the prison to deal with the issues around housing addiction, domestic violence and financial difficulties, I think it would be a great help, because when you're released from the Doka Centre, you're actually released, and you're released with no supports. So I think that's a big issue that the prison system need to look at for women, especially women that doesn't live in Dublin, and because we live in Dublin, we have Exchange House, Pavy Point and all around us. People live in Galway and Mayo, that's miles away from home, being released from a prison in Dublin. They need support upon release from the jail. And if so, could women be offered more supports around assessing the services, accessing services from within the prison service? So if this could happen, if the women could be signed a support worker from within the Doka Centre or Limerick prison before they're released from the prison, so that can link in with whoever their support is as soon as they're released from the jail. I just really think that nearly every travelling woman that's in the Doka Centre or in Limerick prison is a mother, does have children on the outside. And there's nobody who'll realise the hurt that you have in your heart is actually when you're locked in at 7:30 every night and you've nothing but to think about with your children at the end of the day. That breaks your heart, and it takes a very strong woman to actually not think about suicide or depression in that place. There's big supports needed around the travelling women in that community. I just hope to God what I said here today can make a difference to people, and I'll just leave it at that.